You don't know the culture, dance, camp, culture, dance clash Berlin.
Yo, CDC Festival Berlin 2019.
CDC Festival.
Yep, good to go.
CDC Festival 2019 Berlin. This is the day before the last day, and I'm here sitting with a very special guest that I want to interview for the whole event. And finally, I have it here. Welcome, Professor Hope. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm having fun and doing a lot of research and meeting a lot of people.
And welcome back, because this is a welcome back. You have already been part of our event a few years ago. It was 2016. At that time, it was TopUp Dancehall Camp. And now we evolve in a new event. So you are in a new location with new activities, a bigger program. So can you give us a bit representation, how you found this event, how you see the development of this event, what you like most about what you have found right now here in Berlin?
Well, comparing to 2016, and we had TopUp Camp, and so this year we have a merge of TopUp Camp and MIK Family for the CDC Festival. So this year is a festival, 2019 is a festival, and it has more parts to it, more complementary parts. And so we have, in a real sense, something that has built itself out from being just camp with dance workshops and people, participating. And we had a little talk session in 2016. This year we actually had a big conference seminar session. We have had, so different components have been added. And for me, that has made the festival, as it is in 2019, something that has grown significantly since I was last year. I'm very impressed by the growth and by the build out. And of course, we are in a larger venue to accommodate the growth. Far more people are here, and it seems to me that the festival is thriving and that the team, Maggie and Prince and the entire team, have conceptualized something that is going to continue to grow.
This is very good to hear. We will talk about the conference later during the interview. You mentioned something, the merge between TopUp Production and MIK Family, and also during the interview you highlighted as praising the collaboration between the hip-hop world and the dancehall world coming from common roots. Is this something that is going on also in other events that you have visited? Because I know you, as social researcher, cultural researcher, you travel a lot also in festivals. Of course, you are very active in Jamaica and in other continents, South America, to mention just one. And have you seen it before? Is it something that is going on in other parts of the world?
Well, I've heard that there has been some attempts to fuse, because really what is happening is that these are really black popular cultural forms. They are Afro forms, and so they do have a relationship in terms of how the music is used. I spoke about, for example, dancehall's own contribution through Kool Herc and others to the development of what becomes hip-hop culture and rap music in the United States of America, to the development of reggaeton and these other forms. And so here what we have is a festival that builds out these forms and shows the connections between them. So the MIK Family bringing the hip-hop and the house and the Afrobeat, pulling that together with dancehall, which was the foundation of TopUp Productions, and really making a merger of the two events and pulling these forms together in a very connected whole. All these parts are connected in one whole. So I haven't really seen it elsewhere, but it seems to me that this is a natural fusion, and that this is something that can have value for the different people who are involved in these different but very complementary forms of music. So I've looked at some of the other camps that have been happening elsewhere, and they mainly seem to focus on one form. So what the camps do is they are very selective, and so they reduce the camp to one form, but building out black popular cultures or Afro forms, dancehall oriented as a center, which is what CDC Festival is doing here in 2019. I see it as a very important move for the future movements of festivals like these.
I totally agree also, because sometimes hip-hop is very popular in terms of urban dance style, but many people dancing it, they don't know the origins, they don't know the crucial part of dancehall culture in its development, in its roots, really. So it's definitely a very positive movement forward. Coming back to the conference we mentioned, it was a beautiful night. You graced us with a beautiful talk, Dancehall Family, building global network, building global dance networks. It was very deep, very rich of concepts from the academia, from your experience, and a very interesting analysis of the development of what I see. We can a development that happened in the last 10 years, let's say, because not dancehall itself, but the dancing culture of dancehall went big internationally, and not just in terms of dance, but of understanding of what this of its role in Jamaican dancehall culture has. It's a 10-year process. Before it was not happening. You mentioned, of course, the role of media in it. And of course, social media were crucial. Without it, probably the development would be, and the knowledge that we could get in Europe or in Asia or in South America really smaller. That was not possible. You mentioned It's All About Dancing, a DVD that changed life for many outside Jamaica, definitely, because before that, it was very difficult to get like a history of what it was, dancehall, dancing culture. Do you think, or can you mention other factors that helped this development? I mean, social media, there were really, and media in general, but can you mention some crucial personalities or activities that helped this development?
Well, and I'm basing a lot of it on my own research, because I've been talking over the last 3 or so years to quite a lot of people who are involved in the dancing industry, as well as people who are coming from Europe and other places, Latin and South America, Chile, Mexico, and elsewhere. And one of the things that stands out for me as well, very important, is that Jamaica in and of itself as a location seems to be very attractive to people. I mean, it's usually Jamaica is a very big tourist destination, and so people are interested in Jamaica and what comes from Jamaica. So when they get involved with the dance and the music, and then people begin what I see as pilgrimages to Jamaica, in the same way people did for reggae, they do for dancehall. They make pilgrimages to Jamaica. Then they make connections with a certain kind of spirituality. They make connections with the people who are dancers. And so, for example, names like Orville Hall comes up a lot. And Orville is one of the old school dancers, who is also one of the founders of the Dance Expressions family and the dance studio. Latonya Styles also comes up as one of the persons, again, who are at the forefront of that movement from Jamaica, and the founder of the Dance Jamaica headquarters, school, academy, because the name has changed significantly. But really what I see coming out of it a lot is that there is an interest in many people in understanding what this music is and where the culture that supports it comes from, because people first learned the dance in isolation of an understanding of the culture. And then many people, I find, with a keen sense of social justice, I find, from Europe, have an interest in coming to Jamaica to find out what is happening, who are the people involved. And so especially after 2010, after 2010, a lot more people came to Jamaica to find out what was happening with this music culture and to get involved with the individuals from Jamaica who they met on Facebook or whose videos they saw on YouTube and wanted to be a part of a broader, what I call hashtag dancehall family. And I use the hashtag in my presentation because it symbolizes as well, as you say, the social media, internet, Instagram connection. Hashtagging means something in this kind of world in which we live.
Yes, definitely. And you mentioned important cultural ambassador and what Kimiko called in the interview dancehall activist, which is something that really touched me a lot, because there are really people that speak out for dancehall, you in the academia, and dancers with their students, international student audience. So that was fundamental to broaden the knowledge. In the last years, you have also and I think that was also the focus of your last talk here at the Top of Dancehall Camp. You talk about glocalization of dancehall, because of course when you take a part of a culture outside of its originarian site, you will have some fusion with what this culture finds outside the land. So let's say dancehall taken outside of Jamaica, mixed with something else, or people, but especially when people had never been to Jamaica. You mentioned, for example, the Venezuelan case that you faced some years ago, where you met a crew of DJs and passionate of dancehall that had never been to Jamaica. They really understand, yeah. And this happened everywhere in the world. For example, when I think about Japan, where I've never been there, but from the DVD or the history I heard, or artists telling that some city in Japan look like Kingston, like parties going, party after party, going in party, everybody dressing and acting like dance crew in Jamaica, like real is a big business over there. Is there something that shocked you in talking about your experience abroad? Is there any situation that shocked you a bit, not negatively, but even positively, about how people made dancehall for themselves? I mean, the interpretation of dancehall for people that maybe they've never been there.
Well, two things, because when I went to Venezuela in 2015, one of the things that was important for me, and I was invited there along with Orville Hall and Cindy Clyce, who also teaches dancehall theater, to be a part of a team by the British from the under the auspices of the British Council to deal with showcase dancehall to the young men and women there who were very interested. None of them had ever been to Jamaica. A couple of them had been to dancehall queen competition, but none of them had ever had a Jamaican coming to teach them dancehall. So this was the first time they were learning about dancehall in any way, for example, from me as an academic, and learning about dancehall from the people like Orville and so, who were directly connected to the dancehall. But even so, they had built some version of a dancehall industry and was teaching dancehall as a part of their activities and using it to in a sense, empower themselves there. I found it to be very interesting, and I was very moved by it, because the situation in Venezuela, as many people know, in terms of the resources over the last, say, 5 or 10 years now, things have gotten really difficult. It's very difficult for them to travel, very difficult for them to get access, but they were able to carve out for themselves an idea of dancehall culture and to maintain their own networks, with the hope that Jamaicans, they were very, I keep in touch with a lot of them, and I plan to go back. Some of them have left, they have gone to Colombia, a couple are in Jamaica, and they're trying to move out of Venezuela, but many of them are still there. So
sorry, do you think that the struggle that they had inspired them to get closer to dancehall?
Well, I find that most of the locations where dancehall becomes important, people are dealing with different levels of marginalization. So it may not be the same as in Jamaica, but people see dancehall as a way to empower themselves, to free themselves from something that they find restrictive, to give themselves hope. And so it is interpreted in a lot of different territories and countries and people from different languages and different geographical spaces as something that gives them freedom. And I think first they see the dances, and the dances are a breaking space and cutting space, and these are black bodies, and so people feel that they can also be similarly empowered. The other example, that when I came to TopUp production, the camp in 2016, that was the first I saw this concept of dancehall battles. Now, for me, that is something that is totally alien to Jamaican dancehall culture. We do not have battles. We have clashes. And so an artist will clash an artist lyrically on stage. A dancer will clash a dancer. So you may have two dancers in the street or in a party, and they'll dance, and somebody will win. But here, what I realize that has been happening in Europe is that the idea of hip-hop battles has been fused with dancehall, and so dancehall is put in this scenario where people actually battle it out for an ultimate winner. That's not a Jamaican, that's not from Jamaican dancehall, but because of the way that black cultures are used in Europe and the idea that hip hop and dancehall are connected and can be used, Afrobeat and all of these forms, the notion of dancehall battles have developed. Some of the dancers, when I interviewed them, were a little concerned about it. For me, it was a hybrid that comes from the movement of dancehall into Europe, and it's one of the manifestations. And you say it changes and takes a shape and form, and this would be a kind of example when I talk about glocalization. The local and the global are mixed, and so it takes a certain form here. So the battles, very important manifestation.
Interesting. And you were saying something beautiful about the relation between Jamaica and the rest of the world. We, the rest of the world, we get something from, of course, we get a lot from the dancehall Jamaican culture, but same time, something goes back to Jamaica. Can you make us some example of what goes back to Jamaica for me, please?
Well, and this is specifically related to dancehall and the dance industry, because several things for me, and again, this is my research, so I'm trying to not talk about all of my research, but in a real sense, there are several things that go back to Jamaica, because one, remember that a lot of the people who are dancers didn't see themselves as professionals. They saw themselves as people having fun, creating moves and just enjoying themselves in parties and maybe getting a chance to have a hype at a party. What has happened since the pull factor from Europe, the various desires, whatever they are, is that people see themselves as professionals. The dancers, male and female, try to hone their craft. They work at it, they create moves, and they build out themselves so that they are able to be a part of an industry that is developing, so they can reap the rewards. They can travel, they can earn, they can share their culture, they can meet new people, they can network. So in a real sense, the desires from Europe in particular have created a set of people who are from Jamaica, who have become more professionalized about what they're doing and have a greater sense of urgency about ensuring that they make sure that their craft is raised to the highest levels. That's one of the things that I've seen.
And I'm happy you made this example, because I was talking about it with Rudy Legacy, and he was telling me teaching is what brought me to being able to teach my moves, not in one movement, but to divide a single section of a move just to get students to learn it. This was something that was not familiar to him before becoming a teacher, because it was a dancer and was everything about the flow and the imbibing on music. But then when you have to bring your own moves to other people, especially if they are very complicated or medium complicated, you have to develop those skills, and that was something that came from a request from abroad, because we students from abroad need teacher to count and the step needs to be explained in a certain way. Not everybody, but of course that was something that is well related to this development in the professionalization of.
What happens is that the men and women learn how to move from being a dancer, an individual, to being a teacher, somebody who can impart knowledge. So they actually learn new skills. And in Jamaica, we dance, we just dance, but they learn how to break the dance down into the various steps. And so they learn, because of this movement, how to impart their knowledge in a way that many people would have had to go to a school, an academy, to learn how to do that. So the first wave of dancers who came to Europe, many of them were unable to teach the dance because they didn't understand that you have to break it down into the steps so that people can get the entire movement. So one dance move is a series of steps, and so they have become very professionalized, and I don't think they realize that this is something that has empowered them as well in terms of providing them with new ways and new skills, new ways of being a new skill. So that is a very important development, because there's nowhere in Jamaica that really taught people how to teach dancehall. So they learned how to teach dancehall because of this movement.
Yeah, I see also many of our teachers that came years ago, they grew a lot during these years, and also going to their lessons, they reach a level of professionality which is incredible. I want to ask you something about a concept. I was having a discussion with my friends about dancehall and subculture. So in Europe, dancehall is a subculture. We are passionate about dancehall, like also other music genres or dance style. There are little communities. Some countries has bigger communities than others, but you can't consider as it a mainstream movement. When I see it in Jamaica, I don't want to call it subculture, because for me, and this was a discussion, because for me that you can't call subculture something that is so important and everywhere, even if can be considered coming from the ghetto and not accepted by the higher classes or by the establishment. For me, that is the culture. So I want to know your opinion about it, because that was the point. I was saying it's a subculture in Europe, but not in Jamaica. It's a mainstream culture in Jamaica. And my friends were like, no, dancehall is well known as a subculture. So what do you think about it?
Well, I think because the challenge in Jamaica is that because dancehall comes from the lower classes and the inner cities, and Jamaica is a class society, so there's always a struggle between what is from the base of the society and what is considered high culture and positioned there. So even though dancehall is the culture, very pervasive, is used in everything from advertisements on television, people on the campaign trail, politicians. It's used in slang. The fashion is a part of it. We are very happy when it is used somewhere on the Super Bowl, or we see Beyonce using it. But then there is this, I find, a kind of social hypocrisy, really, in terms of moving to fully accept dancehall, because of course dancehall has its own moving parts that may not always be fully accepted. And the issue of Christianity as well, fundamentalist Christianity, which still rejects things that are said to be immoral. Dancehall has a lot of explicit and very erotic turns, and dancehall is very graphic in a lot of what it does because of the kind of culture that it is. So there is always this concern that dancehall should not be identified as the culture, or a very critical part of what is Jamaican culture. And my work a lot of times has to be to remind people, I use this term, dancehall didn't come on an alien ship from Mars. It grew organically out of Jamaican society. And so it is very much a part of who we are. And it's very pervasive. It's used all over. We have dancehall artists who are ambassadors for a lot of the major companies. All the companies that are there have dancehall ambassadors. But what they try to do, and this is a challenge for me, is that they try to in a sense, confine the creation and the creativity of the artists and the dancers to something that will make an individual or a group of people feel better. Dancehall is also youth culture. And so there are always these restrictions and taboos that older people, the older generation, will impose on the youth. The youth is considered to be too violent, too explicit, too loud, too everything. And of course, their parents or older people will always try to dampen that when it suits them. So there's all of these tensions. And so for some people in Jamaica, dancehall is considered a subculture. It's pushed into the back. Events have to be held in certain locations. The Noise Abatement Act, which came out in 1999, is still used heavily against dancehall to shut down dancehall. But regardless of that, dancehall remains very pervasive, very strong, continues to grow. And see, here we are in Europe. So dancehall is very powerful and remains so.
I see, yes, and I don't want to to start any debate about what's happening in Jamaica about not supporting dancehall but supporting other Caribbean genres. We were gonna do that. No. Instead of that, we're gonna talk about your own project, because beside being a professor and of course a researcher, you have opened a website, which is a broader project called the Dancehall Archive and Research Initiative, the HA, that you represent with your T-shirt here today. I want to know something more about it. Who is behind it? How did you start it? And what's the purpose of such a project?
We started the Dancehall Archive in 2018, and we launched in April 2018. And the reason why I conceptualized this project, which should be broadened and built out over time, is that for me, dancehall culture doesn't have the kind of archival material, doesn't have the kind of structure around it that it deserves. So we have a lot of little silos here and there where people are doing their own thing. But again, because we are not recognizing in a full way from Jamaica the value and potential of dancehall culture, I felt that it was necessary to initiate a process towards having a location that is not just looking at dancehall as party and entertainment. You know, we have a lot of people putting up websites with people on music videos, but also looking at the research around dancehall, the books around dancehall, trying to build out archival material to host exhibitions, and really a location where we can look at the preservation of dancehall culture and its artifacts, and innovating towards other areas. And so there's a team of people who are involved. Patrick Helber was here, and Patrick is a part of the Dancehall Archive from Germany. He came to Jamaica to do his PhD, and he worked with me as a part of that. He's here in Germany. We have Jose Miguel Aponte, who is in Venezuela, one of my Venezuelan contacts. We have Raquel is in she's at UCLA. We have Lisa Tomlinson, Dr. Lisa Tomlinson. She's a Jamaican who grew up in Canada, and she's now back in Jamaica working. My son, Bertland Hope, is, of course, a part of the Dancehall Archive, and he helps us with the website and all of that. One of the things that we had started doing, and we still are calling out, is that we built a bibliography. We tried to pull together all the materials that had been written. And one of the things that came out very strongly, Chiara, when we were doing that, is that there's a growing wave of research from Europe.
I saw it, yeah. You were mentioning also Johanna Mathesis.
And a lot of research. I mean, just last semester, Una from Poland, I think, was with me. She's doing her bachelor's thesis. So it's at that level. People are working their bachelor's thesis, their master's, and their PhD thesis, but they're mainly coming from Europe. The majority of them are from Europe, and one or two from the USA, and one or two from Canada, and basically nothing from Jamaica. And I keep talking about that because, in a sense, I'm trying a lot to encourage people to work towards understanding dancehall culture and the multiplicity of it. This is so big, but Europe seems to have taken up a great deal of interest in it, far more.
As you are talking about it, I have a curiosity about your personal bio and life. So, when you decide to approach dancehall as a researcher, which type of reaction you get from the community? I mean, from the academia, from your professor, from your tutors, because you seems like you and also some colleagues of yours, well known, but you looks like very, kind going against what is the current wave of Jamaica of making of dancehall something that we don't really talk about it.
Well, because I come from a working class background, so for me, dancehall was a part. The early dancehall, old school, was a part of the soundtrack of my teenage years growing up and being, that's my party. But when I went to the university, I did a first degree in media and communication, and then did courses in gender. But I really was very interested in some academic work around dancehall. There was very little academic work being done around dancehall. So when I went to do my master's in philosophy, in political science, I wanted to do it around dancehall. My professor at that time, Rupert Lewis, was very supportive. He didn't really have a grip on a lot of dancehall, but he was very supportive. So I actually taught in the Department of Government in political science for 6 years, and I taught things like Bounty Killer, in Caribbean political thought, and so I was given a lot of flexibility in that department, and that master's in philosophy became in the dancehall. That's the focus of my first book. But in a sense, people felt a lot of times, even from outside of the university, and people felt that, if you're doing a degree and you're going to do a master's, why are you doing dancehall? That's not something you study. And your colleagues, a lot of them felt that it was not a worthy project. But then I went off to the US on a Fulbright scholarship and did a PhD in cultural studies. And that PhD looked at popular culture and gender, masculinities, which is man vibes. And I, again, did a great deal of research on dancehall culture in particular as the focus of the popular culture part. Because for me, we have not done enough work. We have not mined the understandings of dancehall culture from different areas. We don't have an economic study of dancehall. I keep asking for that. I saw an economic study of hip hop being done through Harvard. I think I saw something. My same former professor, Rupert Lewis, who is now retired, sent me a link to a paper that is work that is being done. We still don't have that in Jamaica.
I know you don't want to quote your own research of the time, but of course, as I presented you wrote some really fundamental milestones in the history of research on dancehall, as you mentioned, and I want to know your opinion about, because you are the right person to talk about it, about the future and development of this wave of connection between Europe and Jamaica. We were saying these last 10 years the growth was visible. So many dancers coming on tour, so many interaction within the two culture. How do you see that developing in the next years? Do you think this is a process that will go on?
Yes, I do. I think it's a process that will go on, but as you can see, it's changing. So it's changing in a sense in that because the way that people are being trained, more people are aware of it. The way that the events are taking shape and form. For example, TopUp is no longer just a dancehall camp. It's now a part of a festival, which is a broader festival. What I see happening is that in this dancehall dance, will become one of the menu items. For example, you can learn salsa, you can go do a yoga class, you can go and do a hip-hop class. So dancehall has become one of the menu items, which means that a lot more people will become sensitized to the dance and then to the music that comes with it, and then of course to the culture, and have an interest in Jamaica because of it. It's also become something, and I kind of hinted at it in my presentation, because it is being taught in studios in Europe, and babies are being introduced to it from they start walking. It means that we have a group of young people who are coming up, who are going to see it as something that they are, it's their own, in a way that would be different from the older generation. And so, as I say, Jamaicans will have to contend with the understanding that dancehall will now be owned by and used by people in a different way from what we understand it to be in the street dances and in the parties. But it will promote the artists more, because the music has to be used with it. And so it will promote, and I find it will promote Jamaica more and sensitize people who don't even speak English, have never thought about Jamaica, except maybe, you hear about Usain Bolt or so. So it's no longer just about Bob Marley, it's also about learning how to dance dancehall for fun, for the culture, for health, because it's also for health. It's like a health thing, keep healthy, as well as come to an event like this and enjoy the range of activities that are oriented around the black popular cultural dance forms that are on show. So I think it has a good future, but it's becoming more refined. And for the dancers, I realize that people have to become more professional. They have to understand the dynamics. And I said it in the presentation, there are more dancehall, I call them my dancehall babies, that are being born because of the connection between men and women and the desires that are also a part of that.
Thanks a lot, Professor Ho. It was very nice to go deeper with you in our previous conversation during the conference. Now I'll let you enjoy the finals of our battles, and we hope to have you back here. And good luck for the next research that we hope to read very soon.
All of you will be in the research, like your name. Some of you here are going to be in it. Yes.
You don't know the culture, dance, camp, culture, dance, clash, Berlin.
Yo, CDC Festival Berlin 2019.
CDC Festival.